Greetings to all and a warm welcome to our latest live webcast, Unleash the Power of CodeMeter. We're thrilled you've decided to join us for this enlightening masterclass. With each episode, we provide new highlights, technical tips, and success stories that will leave you inspired and ready to get your protection, licensing, and security techniques another step closer to perfection. At Wibu-Systems, we empower software publishers and intelligent device manufacturers with cutting-edge technologies, new business models, and tailor-made consulting training. Let us help you upgrade, optimize, and automate your entire license lifecycle management so you can focus on monetizing your business at a higher level. My name is Daniela Previtali, Global Marketing Director of Wibu-Systems, and I'm delighted to have you here with us today. We are joined by Wolfgang Völker, Director of Product Management, and Rüdiger Kügler, VP Professional Services and Security Expert, both from the headquarters of Wibu-Systems. To give you a roadmap for today's session, here is what we'll be covering. The new generation of CodeMeter is a goldmine of opportunities for ISVs and their users. Supercharged with new and augmented automation capabilities and even more flexibility, the secure distribution of software is entering a new phase. Core features, integration in software applications, and complete support for back-office processes have all been supplemented with unique functionalities for the world market. Before we dive into the content, let's quickly address a few housekeeping items. For all of you tuning in today, we set aside a special segment at the end of the session exclusively for Q&A. We warmly encourage you to drop your questions into the live chat box as they come to mind. If we can't get to your questions during the live discussion, rest assured we'll make it a priority to engage with you individually at a later time to address your queries. This session is being recorded, and a link to the on-demand replay will be sent straight to your inbox within the next couple of days. This way, you can revisit the insights shared today at your leisure. And don't forget, stick around for the entire live session and seize the opportunity to win an invaluable 4 hours of personalized CodeMeter consultation with our industry-leading experts. As the webinar concludes, a new browser tab will automatically open, presenting you with a quick quiz. We'll randomly select a lucky winner from those who answer correctly and make the big announcement when we release the webinar replay. Kindly note that if you win, you'll be ineligible for any other prize draws we host in 2024. Be also aware that this brief questionnaire includes additional questions aimed at gauging the quality of this masterclass. While these questions are optional, your valuable feedback will empower us to enhance the quality of our offerings and tailor our online events more precisely to meet your specific needs. And now, without any more delay, I'm delighted to hand over the reins to Wolfgang. The stage is all yours.
Hello and a warm welcome to our first webinar in 2024. My name is Wolfgang Völker. I'm the Director of Product Management. Today I asked Rüdiger Kügler to be my co-speaker. Hello, Rüdiger.
Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening. Also welcome from my side and back to Wolfgang.
Yeah, let's start directly with the overall picture of protection and licensing. So the solutions that are offered by Wibu-Systems can be divided mainly in 3 parts. We have the core. This is CodeMeter. The CodeMeter runtime, also available as an embedded or as micro-embedded, is the basic system that we need for licensing. With CodeMeter, you can set up different license models. We have a lot of variants, different types of dongles, software-based solutions, cloud solutions where you can store the licenses. Starting or based on this core, we offer software integration. This is done mainly with the CodeMeter Protection Suite, which does automatic encryption of your application, your library, your script, whatever you want to protect. Additionally to this automatic encryption, you can use our API calls to directly connect to CodeMeter, to get information from there, to do some calls, to do some cryptography. And becoming more and more important over the 20 last years is the third part, the back office integration. It's not only important to have a good protection, it's also very important to have a well-running process to distribute the licenses that you create, that you sell to your customer. So from the ERP system where your customer buys this or where your sales staff enters the orders, up to the activation of the license. This needs to be one integrated process, needs to work without any interaction, doing everything nearly automatically. So these are the three parts, and we will show them today in our webinar, Unleash the Power of CodeMeter.
Yeah, so this is the credo of CodeMeter. So we integrate CodeMeter once into our software and into our processes, and then we can deliver the same software to multiple customers, and we can create different licenses for any customer. So integrate once. We have two parts of the integration. Of course, the first part of the integration is the integration into your software. And as Wolfgang mentioned, this can be done via CodeMeter Protection Suite. So you take your software, you automatically encrypt your software, and that's it. Of course, there are additional options like the CodeMeter API, which we explain later in this webinar. The second integration that you can do is integration into your processes. So if you sell a couple of licenses per year, then of course you can create them manually. But if we speak of multiple licenses, 100, 1000 licenses per year, then you want to automate the license creation, license management, license delivery process. And here you have our CodeMeter License Central. You can integrate this with your ERP system, e-commerce system, CRM system. And on the other hand, either you have a license portal or web depot where a customer can activate or download his licenses, or you can integrate everything in your software. So now, after doing these two integration steps, you can deliver multiple licenses to multiple customers. And on the next page, we see this in more detail. So any customer gets exactly the same software. So you don't need to create different versions of your software, like a pay-per-use software or subscription software. It's the same software for every customer. And then we create individual licenses. And here we have a sample of for the first customer, basic license with some additional features. So in this case, it's a modular license so that you sell not your software as one block, but you sell different features separately. The second option, which is a very hot topic currently, is selling things as subscription. So in the subscription business, you can also do the same, like selling a basic feature and some additional features. More often, I find things like selling basic packages and then advanced packages, like let's say the bronze package, a silver package, a gold package, or something like this, advanced, ultimate, and then including nearly everything in subscription. But this is something that we can discuss later. Of course, also floating network licenses are possible, so that there's a license server in the local network. Wolfgang will explain about the license server more details during this webinar. And here we can say some licenses, let's say in this case, 7 licenses for a basic feature and 5 additional licenses for some additional features. And last but not least, of course, also pay-per-use models are available. Some samples are here. For instance, Agfa is producing copy machines, and they make a calculation on the amount of pages copied or printed. And so they use our technology for this. Is one reference. Another reference is EvoBus. They are creating spare parts on a 3D printer, and they counting the amount of spare parts printed or created, materialized on a 3D printer.
Let's now have a look to the CodeMeter licensing systems. So where can we store the licenses? The first thing is a CodeMeter dongle, where the license container is in a secure hardware element. So we bind the licenses to a smart card chip. We store everything in this smart card chip. And so this is a very secure environment. Another option is the software bound containers, so where we bind the software or the license against the properties of your system. So read out several properties of the system, create some vectors from this, and then bind the licenses to that. So we store it in an encrypted file, which is bounded only to this system. And we have a patented technology, CodeMeter Smart Byte, which allows us that small changes on your system are accepted, but bigger changes will lead that the license is no longer valid. And the third and the newest option since a few years is the CM Cloud container, where the license container is stored in the private Wibu cloud hosted in Germany by Wibu-Systems. There we have the license bound to a user or to some with a credential file that needs to be imported in the CodeMeter license server. And this license server is the central instance on each system that we have. So this license server reads out all the different container types on startup, and then you can use the licenses locally on this system or also over LAN or WAN from a license server in the network. So let's have a look about now, after this overview, about into the CodeMeter core features. How is the license in general constructed? A license entry consists of a firm code and a product code. This combination defines a license entry. The firm code is issued by Wibu-Systems. On this sample here, we see 6.000.10, which is the demo and test firm code that you get together with our CodeMeter SDK. The product code can freely be chosen by you, and you have a lot of options there. So you can up to 4 billion product codes you can use. So you can create a concept on which product you use which product code, and our customers most times sort this depending on the options, on modules, on features, and so that the product code is somehow identifies the kind of software you are working with. But you can freely choose this because the combination is always firm code and product code, and the firm code is unique for your company. You get this from us, and so the product code can be freely chosen. In a container, you can store up to 2,000 product items. This depends on the number of product item options. Each product item, which is the technical container of a license, has this product item options, and you can have several combinations of product item options. Product item options we will see in the upcoming slides can be something like an expiration time or some data fields, whatever. And this can be combined, and then you can have this within your container. You can have in your firm code several product codes with the same or different product item options. So let's have now a look to the product item options. So we can not go into the detail today, but you will see that there are a lot of options. First is a text. You may want to describe your product, your option, your module by a small text, because the license can later be seen by your user, and so it helps also your user to identify the license. License quantity is the number of licenses that can be used by this customer. This can be, for example, 5 or 7, whatever, or 100. And then this is normally a floating network license. You can also set this for local licenses, so you can create licenses that are only running on the same system where the license is stored. And if you don't add a license quantity, the default behavior of CodeMeter server for if a product item has no license quantity is a one-seat network floating license. So this is the standard.
Yeah, and of course there are also some time-based options, and these time-based options are mainly used either for subscription licenses or for trial licenses. And so we have activation time, expiration time, and usage period. And typically I say you don't need activation time. I don't have any project where I use this because activation time means license starts from. And typically it's okay to say license starts when I create a license. The disadvantage of activation time, which is one reason why it's so rarely used, is that you need an internet handshake before the software starts running. And so typically in my projects, I don't use activation time. Expiration time means license is valid until, so this is a very powerful feature. And so if you have a subscription, you say the license is until the 31st of December 2024, for instance, or you can say something, it is valid for the next 365 days, and then License Central, for instance, automatically calculates the day-to-day plus 365 days or something like this. So you have a relative expiration time and an absolute expiration time, and you can choose which one to use. And last but not least is we have usage period. And usage period, sometimes it's a false friend, because usage period is a period of time where a license can be used. And so it is very similar to the relative expiration time, but the difference is the relative expiration time is calculated during the activation of the license. The usage period is typically calculated during the first start of the software. And so a use case is, or the major use case from my point of view, is backup licenses, spare licenses. So I have one customer, they are creating or selling cotton sorting machines, and they say our controlling unit is the most important part of the machine. And if this machine doesn't work, the production stops and we lose a lot of money, or our customers lose a lot of money. And that's why we want to give him a spare part for this controlling unit. And in this controlling unit, in the spare part, there's a CodeMeter dongle with a usage period of, I think it's 10 days, 20 days, something like this. And so the spare part can be used to continue immediately with production. And then a field engineer can go to the field, can just repair the original unit, can reset the spare unit, and so on. And so this is the major use case for the usage period.
We have two other options here, the feature map and the maintenance period. So a feature map was originally designed at the beginning to have 32 bits, where you can set different feature bits, but this is no longer used by our customers really to combine their features. It is mainly used in the meantime for versioning. So, for example, if you want to use a feature map, you set in your license maybe 2 bits, maybe bit 2 and bit 3 of the feature map, and then in the license you set a feature code where you try to when you try to access the license, then the feature code must be a subset of this feature map. So if the feature code is setting the bit, asking for bit 2, it will work with this license which has bit 2 and 3 set. And of course, if the license asks for bit 4, it will not work with this license. And you can use this for setting or enabling versions of your product. This has the advantage that a customer can choose which versions to use. For example, your customer has originally bought version 2, and then afterwards he bought the update for version 3. And then most times the customers will not make a hard change over to the new version. They want in existing projects to continue with the old version of the product, and in new products they want to work with the new versions of the product. And so if you have then set the 2 bits for these 2 versions, then the customer can freely decide which version to use. But this will in total respect, for example, the license quantity he has bought. If he has bought 10 licenses in total, he can use either 10 versions of the old version of the product, 10 instances, or he can use 10 instances of the new, or any mixture in between. For example, 3 of the old one and 7 of the new one. And he can change over time completely freely, but this respects your license quantity. So this is now more used for version control. Maintenance period is used for defining maintenance. So you might sell your software with the maintenance for 1 year, and so your customer can use your software, all software versions that are released within this period. And but if he does not prolong his maintenance period, then he cannot use newer versions of your product in the next year, for example. But he needs to be able to work with the old versions also, for example, the next 5 years. And so this can be done with the maintenance period. So you define in the license and maintenance period, and in the on the request with your application, you define a release date. And if this release date is within this maintenance period, everything is fine and you will get the license access. If the release date is out of the maintenance period, of course, you will not get it.
Yeah, and the maintenance period has a start and end, and with the start date, you can also get rid of the support of old versions. So meaning if you update licenses and you update the start date to, let's say, 1 year later, this means that the support for old software will be ceased and the user can no longer use old and outdated versions. By the way, expiration time and maintenance period can, of course, be combined, especially in subscription cases. I typically find expiration time for license subscriptions and maintenance period for maintenance subscription, but of course, both can be as well combined. Wolfgang already mentioned that originally feature map was planned for licensing different features, and then we found out the restrictions of the 32 different bits, and also that what happens if I want to activate one feature only under some conditions, like only for a couple of days, or I want to have a counter in this feature and so on. And this was very complex to implement and limited, and that's why we created module items. And module items is a product item or product code inside a product item, inside a product code. And so we can define subsets of features, every feature with a new product code. And if we don't define other options inside this module item child, it will automatically inherit all the features and options from the from the parent item. So let's say the parent item has an expiration time because it's a subscription, then also the features, the children, are automatically subscriptions. But of course, you can override it and say, okay, I want to set a different expiration time. I want to set a different feature map or something like this. And so it's a classical inheritance of objects, so the parent inherits the properties to the child.
Also, the unit counter would be inherited by such module item. And so module items are, a little bit complex, as always, inheritance. You need really to take care what is inherited and what not, because sometimes you might have some unwanted effects. So what is a unit counter? A unit counter is a value that can be set only by the software vendor, so by you. You can set it, for example, to 10, and then you can decrease it by API every time you want. For example, if you want to count something, a hard copy of something or something like that, then you can reduce the unit counter. If the unit counter becomes 0, then the license is no longer working. And so the customer needs to buy again some units, for example. Unit counters, you can use them with this hard end, so with the 0, or if you use a really high value for unit counters, you can also use them for just monitoring some kind of usage. Unit counters are also sometimes used for some additional restriction, for example, of a usage period. So if you give a version to a customer for testing, you might say, okay, let's test, you can test in the next 30 days. That's fine. But of course, you might not want him to use the software 30 days, 24 hours, because he should just test and then buy and not be having finished the project already and does no longer need your software. So in this case, for example, you can restrict the usage also to some time value in some using the unit counter. For example, in the unit counter, you program the total number of minutes of usage of the product. For example, if you then program 480, you have 8 hours usage, and then in your software, you can decrease every minute the unit counter by 1, and then automatically after 8 hours, the license is already expires regard to the unit counter. Then, well, usage period is not still over our expiration time, but unit count is 0, so license can no longer be used, and within 8 hours, he should know if he wants to buy the software or not.
Yeah, as Wolfgang mentioned, unit counter, of course, can be combined with module items. So every feature, every option can be combined with any other option, of course, here. For my best practice approach, I never had a project where I did a combination of module items and unit counters. So typically, we say we have one item with the modules, and then if we want to store some units, then we try to create flat items, so just an item, a parent, so without any children. And so this is the best practice approach. Of course, technically it's defined, technically it works. I never recommend this. Last but not least of the options that we want to explain is license transfer. This is a very powerful option. And with license transfer, the requirement is I have a network server and I want to borrow a license for a couple of days because I want to go offline. Maybe I'm on a construction site, I'm an architect, and I want to use the software on this construction site, but I have no VPN connection to my local network server. And then I can borrow a license from the local network server to my laptop. I can use it offsite, and later on I can either return it, or if I don't return it, it will automatically fall back after a defined amount of time. And so this is one use case of the license transfer. And the other use case where we move licenses permanently is that a field engineer should activate some licenses in a plant. And inside this, there is no internet connectivity. There is no option to get any data from the plant to the outside. And so he takes his dongle with a license or with multiple licenses. He goes to the device inside this zone, and then he connects his dongle to this device and says, I want to transfer one of my licenses to this device, and then the device is licensed. And so this is the license move. And so license move is a permanent move of licenses, and license transfer is a temporarily borrowing of a license. There are some additional features that if you would explain them, the webinar would already be over, and that's why we just skipped them. We have CodeMeter in different variants, and the different variants is because we are targeting I think every possible system where software can run. It starts with small FPGAs, goes via microcontrollers, of course also PLCs, controllers that you use for machine automation, mobile devices, tablet devices, of course small gadgets like IoT devices or IoT devices, then of course embedded systems like Raspberry Pi, and of course some more professional tools like this or professional boards like this. industrial PCs, personal computers, and of course, last but not least, high performance, high power cloud computation. And for this, we have one variant, which is CodeMeter Cloud Lite. And CodeMeter Cloud Lite has a REST and SOAP API, mainly use the REST API. And this is especially made for these mobile devices or IoT devices and for cloud applications. And then we have three different versions of the full CodeMeter runtime. And the full CodeMeter runtime is available as CodeMeter Micro Embedded, CodeMeter Embedded, and CodeMeter Runtime, as Wolfgang already mentioned on the first slide. And CodeMeter Micro Embedded is for microcontrollers, FPGAs, and can be used in very small environments where there is restricted memory and something like this. CodeMeter Embedded is then for bigger devices, and CodeMeter Runtime for everything where there is an Linux or Windows or macOS operating system. And so what we see is that the borders are very overlapping, and so if you can use CodeMeter Runtime, then we recommend to use CodeMeter Runtime, because here we have a management of crashed applications and to free licenses of crashed applications, managing of terminal servers, virtual machines, Docker containers, sessions, and all the stuff. And so that's why I would recommend to first try CodeMeter Runtime, and or even if it doesn't fit for your system because it's too limited, so you have too limited resources, then to go for CodeMeter Embedded and for CodeMeter Micro Embedded. And what we see from the supported container types, CodeMeter Runtime supports all container types, cloud, ACT, and dongle. And CodeMeter Embedded does support CM ACT licenses and CM dongles, and CodeMeter Micro Embedded, it's hard to plug in a USB dongle to a microcontroller, and that's why we only support CM ACT licenses here.
Let's now have a look on the CodeMeter runtime in detail. So what Rüdiger just mentioned, that kind of system that you should try first on your system and which covers most systems. CodeMeter runtime starts, and the heart of the CodeMeter runtime is the CodeMeter license server. This is started as a daemon on the system together with startup of it, and it then addresses the different types of CodeMeter containers, so CM dongle, CM ACT license, and CM cloud container. And after the startup phase, then the licenses are available, and the CodeMeter license server is ready to accept calls that are coming in by the CodeMeter Core API. These are the calls, for example, that are coming from your protected software. There are some other parts in the CodeMeter runtime, and this is, for example, the CodeMeter Control Center, where you can see the containers and have an overview. You find this next to your clock in the tray area. Additionally to the CodeMeter license server, there is a web interface, the so-called CodeMeter web admin, as a separate service, which you can address by your browser. Some additional tools like CMU or CMDust enable the users to do everything they want. With CMU, you can, for example, import some licenses and do something in the command line. CMDust is a tool which gets all the data that are necessary for support, so we don't need to ask you boring questions about your system, because we can see everything in the result of the CMDust tool. So the CodeMeter license server was changed internally a little bit with CodeMeter version 8.0, starting with CodeMeter version 8.0. Also on Windows systems, CodeMeter license server is now 64-bit based. Until the versions before, it was still a 30-bit executable. Well, the time of 32-bit most times is over. Of course, if you install the CodeMeter runtime for 32-bit, you have still the CodeMeter license server with 32 bits and all the functionality for runtime is there. The SDK is in the meantime only available for 64-bit. But for users, you have 32-bit. Well, a small side note regarding this 64-bit support, for customers that are using some enhanced version of the CMX license with some plug-in files, so the so-called binding extensions, they need to recompile them as a 64-bit system.
Just a question, Wolfgang. Let's assume I want to, or I produce a 32-bit application because I'm very old-fashioned, and I want to use it on a 64-bit system with a 64-bit license server. Do I have a 32-bit version of the dynamic libraries?
Yes, of course. You can also run the 32-bit application, and it will call, there's also the 32-bit library available on the system, or if it's statically bound to the software, it's already in. CodeMeter license server is working within H over a TCP/IP interface. So on this level, it does not care. So you just need the libraries, and then it connects to this. We can see on the next slide.
So this means that if I'm producing a 32-bit application, nothing changes for me if my customer has a 64-bit system, right?
No, no changes necessary on your side. Only thing is if you use binding extension, and the few people in the world that are using binding extension will now know.
Okay, I don't use it, so for me, I don't need to change anything. That's good.
That's fine.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And so this is the local CodeMeter runtime. And of course, instead of using the licenses locally, you can use also licenses over network on the LAN and WAN server. And this then is done in this way. On the right side, we see the client with your software. And then from this CodeMeter license server, it goes via port 22350 to the network license server, where then some of the licenses are connected. And on the server, you have the web admin, and then you can also, for example, have a look who currently has accessed a license. And you can see this via browser from any system where you have access to and where the rights are set in the correct way.
For me, this looks dangerous, Wolfgang. Are these ports open by default?
Well, this depends, of course, on the system. In the meantime, also on Windows, for example, there is an integrated firewall, and we are opening these ports with our installation routine. So it's always recommended to use, and this is a standard way of using, to use our installers. You can get the MSI installers or the X installers for the runtime, also for integration with your installers. And then if you want to run a network license server, then you can check the box for, okay, make it available over network, and then the ports are opened for LAN access.
But if I don't need it, then it's not opened automatically, correct?
Then it's not opened automatically. You can choose during the installer, and this is something you also can customize on integration in your personal installer.
So CodeMeter is very smart. I like this. I really like this. Okay, next feature, I already told you license borrowing. And when we speak of CodeMeter, we have usually License Central for license creation. So this is a tool which is running on your side, or if you want us, then Wibu, we can operate it for you in the cloud. And then we have the user side. And on the user side, typically the user has a floating network server where CodeMeter is installed. And in most cases, they're using a CMX license, because what we learned from Wolfgang, a network server, of course, needs a container, either a cloud container, a dongle, or a CMX license. And most of the license servers that I had in my projects were based on a CMX license, but of course, it can also be a license server with a cloud container or with a dongle. And then usually the user has some computers, clients, laptops, personal computers, where they use dongles or CMX licenses. Yeah, and then typically a software is activated, or licenses are activated to the network server or the license server in the network. So then when a user wants to go offsite, then the user can borrow a license. And so the license is taken, or is marked in the container on the server as it's now in use for the next X days, maybe 5 days. And then temporarily 5 days license is created in the local container, dongle or CMX license, and then the user can use it. And if the user does not do anything else, the license will automatically fall back. So the license will expire locally, and the license will be automatically available after this fixed usage time at the license server. Or the user can already return it in advance, and then of course the license will become immediately available on the network license server again. Of course, it's also possible to deactivate the network license server. Typically, this is done when a license network server should be switched from one computer to another computer. And so we have a lot of things where we transfer licenses between you, vendor, and the user can do this offline. And that's why we try to use consistently the following name: license activation for the transfer between you and your user, and license transfer, or sometimes we use also offline license transfer to make it even more clear. License transfer for this offline transferring of licenses inside your user. Of course, this is a feature that you need to activate. So if you don't set the option license transfer, then of course your user cannot do this automatically. So you decide if you want to use this feature or if you don't want to use this feature.
Yeah, thanks for this interesting insight in license borrowing. Now we change the field of activation and we go to software integration. What tools are we able to use, and what do we offer? The software integration mainly works with automatic integration. This is the easiest way to do it. We are working, or we can encrypt and protect applications that are natively compiled for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux or Android. We can also protect .NET assemblies, starting with .NET, whatever old versions from Microsoft, up to .NET standard applications, the newest, which is supported with CodeMeter 8.0 or the corresponding CodeMeter protection suite 11.40 is .NET 8. Additionally, also for Java, we can offer protection. Newest to the family of different kinds of software is the protection of some scripts like Python and JavaScript. For this, we have developed something new, because protecting scripts is a separate challenge. Additionally to this automatic mechanisms that where we support you and where you can protect your application within a few minutes, there are some API options. The first is the software protection API, which is part of the automatic encryption, where you can then easily use some small calls functionality within your application. And everything is in general based on this basic API, on the CodeMeter core API. Everything else is at the end calling the CodeMeter core API and gets all the information from this. So these are the different options. Let's have a short look on the different options of CodeMeter Protection Suite. I already mentioned the different kinds of protections: native applications, Windows, Mac, Linux, then .NET, scripts like Python, JavaScript, and then we have also Java and Android. There are several features available, and it depends on what you need to protect, what is your goal, what do you want to achieve, and this it might be a good idea to discuss this directly with the colleagues from professional service, or with support, or also in the pre-sales phase, what you want to do and what kind of options you should purchase.
Yeah, for some of these script languages, or for these high-level languages like .NET, Java, JavaScript, Python, there are also tools available with which you can transform your JavaScript application to an executable, or where you can, with Python, transform your Python application, or with ahead of time compiling, making from the AX protector or from a .NET application a native application. And of course, in this case, you can use our AX protector Windows, but using this native mechanism, like the .NET mechanism, Python mechanism, JavaScript mechanism, gives you the option that your software will still stay platform independent, which I think is a very big benefit. And the other thing, we have a higher security by using these native technologies on Python, because here we can encrypt single methods in Python. And so using AX Protector Python is a better way than compiling it to a C application and then using some other tools around this. Same for .NET, JavaScript, and Java. And so, yes, it's possible also to transform this to native applications and then use AX Protector native, or as a Windows or Windows Mac Linux. But of course, it's we offer higher security with our native, or with our .NET, Python, JavaScript, and Java optimized AX protectors.
With the newest version of CodeMeter Protection Suite, we introduced a new graphic interface for AX Protector configuration, which is currently available for AX Protector .NET and C, and we will learn in the next slides what NC does mean. In this version, you currently have the quick, basic, and the license-free mode. In the next version, we will have also the expert mode, and then we will continue to support further AX protectors in the near future. So this will be a new graphical interface. The old one, the existing one, is a little bit old-fashioned, let's say. And yeah, we will, one after the other, we will convert to the new one. One of the advantages of the new graphical interface, it stores just directly the file that is already used for doing the protection step itself. And so you can at every time get back the file and open it again with a graphical user interface without handling additional project files. So let's now have a look about the protection of .NET or Python like this.
Yeah, and before we have a look at the protection, let's take a look of how a hacker would analyze your software in case it is not protected with tools like AX Protector. And if you have a native, so a C++ application, your hacker would, or your attacker would take something like IDA Pro and would at least get a chart how the workflows are in the software and see some assembler code. In case of .NET and Java, it's even more worse. Here, they can take your executable or your library, and then they can decompile it. Here we have a sample with the .p compiler. There's also just decompile, .NET Reflector, so there are multiple tools, and this can easily transform it back to C code, C# code, Visual Basic code, and so the attacker nearly has your original source code. Okay, the comments are missing, but who cares about comments in the source code? And so if there would be something like, oh, if check license, it would be easy to find it, to find this for the hacker and to remove it. And I told you with the .NET and Java, with these high-level languages, it's already more worse. But with Python and JavaScript, it's even more worse. And because here you deliver your source code, you have a Python script, you deliver the Python script, your user, the hacker, would simply take a notepad, Alt-Right or something like this, and then he would automate, or he would see your source code without any stuff. He could change your source code. So this means there is no protection at all. If we speak of native applications, so the first thing, so C, C++, then we take the, so you compile your application, then we take the machine code of your application, we encrypt it, we add a security engine that we call AX engine, and then the software is protected. And so when your software starts, it first starts the AX engine, and then AX engine checks, is the license available? And then one very important thing, AX engine uses keys inside the license to decrypt your software. And so when you create a license, firm code, product code, like Wolfgang explained to you, there is automatically a key that we distribute into this license, and this key is used with some key derivation for the decryption of your software. So without having a license, the key is missing, and without a key, an attacker could not decrypt and analyze your software. With a key, the software would be decrypted and started, and then we have some anti-debugging mechanisms to make it even harder or even hard for an attacker to analyze your software. And how does it work for .NET, Wolfgang?
Yeah, with the new AX Protector .NET NC, we do it in a different way. We transfer with the AX Protector also the code in some encrypted code. We add some security payload, but then we don't have everything within this security part within the application, but we do this in the so-called CPSRT, which in the long version is CodeMeter Protection Suite Runtime. And this is a platform-dependent library which has several or better options to fight against the attackers. And so on starting the application, the protected application, there are several calls sent to the CPSRT DLL, and then you get some answers back. You can decrypt stuff. The runtime checks are stored and executed by the CPSRT, and so it's started from there. So that to fight against attackers is that it's very helpful to be on a native part of application. So because then we can grab from processes and do several things on the system, which we cannot do within .NET. Everyone would be able to modify something and to get rid of this part. So that is what the new version is, and this is that's why it's, by the way, why it's called AX Protector NC. I promised to tell you what NC does mean. It's just the native component. So you have your independent code, also with Python script and JavaScript, it's the same. You have independent code, not depending on the platform, and then during runtime, you need some platform-dependent library as an add-on, and you can deliver this to your customer, and then we are calling it from there. So that's how it works. What is about, how does the attacker now see this?
The attacker sees that he doesn't see anything. So here we see a sample of the .beak decompiler, and we see unable to decompile the method. What we do is we keep the same structure of the application. We have some additional obfuscation, which is an option that you can add, and you see that the names are no longer readable and understandable. And so it's hard to find out what are this methods for. And every method is encrypted on its own, and so it cannot be decrypted. And even if you would have different tools, you would get something similar. Either you are unable to decompile this method, or let's go to the right-hand side, you would see something similar like we see with Python, that we see in byte array and plop. So I see on the lower part of the screen, AXE_data, and then B'5C8X and so on. And so this is the encrypted original code. And if you would have let's say, a better decompiler in .NET, you would see something similar, like you have a byte array which says nothing to you. And at the beginning, I told you also that if you compare this AX Protector Python or AX Protector.NET to transforming this to a machine code, native code application. The big difference is that if you're using AX Protector.NET or AX Protector Python, we will encrypt every single method, and we will only decrypt this part of your software which are needed now. And so we keep a lot of your application encrypted in the memory, and we will automatically decrypt only the things we need. And this makes the protection even harder than we can do for a native machine code application. So at the end, you see, this is a quite cool stuff.
Yeah, and here's a short list of the things that are done in CodeMeter Protection Suite runtime. So in this native component, we're doing license checks, we are doing content decryption, we check about any hacker attack, so we do some anti-reverse checks. Also, if you enable the feature of code moving, then we execute the code within this CPSRT library. And last but not least, the runtime checks are added. This native component is, by the way, hardened with the AX Protector CTP, also a very new version of AX Protector, which is integrating the protection during compile time. So compile time protection, CTP, and so it's a very good approach to protect code by obfuscation and also to add licensing if necessary. In this type of application, we just need to protect us against tampering, and this can be done with AX Protector CTP. AX Protector CTP is also available for you for systems on Windows, Linux, and Mac. You need, as a pre-requirement, you need to use something of LLVM. So, for example, a Clang compiler, which is standard on Mac, which is often used on Linux and sometimes on Windows, but switching over is easy, as we have seen in the past. So that was about the software integration. Now we come to the last part, the back office integration, and we promised that we, in the last minutes, will now give you a short but good overview about this.
Yeah, let's take a look at the product landscape of CodeMeter. And typically we have a mainstream system, which is of course not CodeMeter, to create licenses or to manage licenses, to create orders. Then we have our license creation and license management system. This is of course a CodeMeter. Then we need to store the license somewhere for usage. And of course we have your software, your protected and or licensed software. So mainstream applications could be an e-commerce system, could be a CRM system, they could be in the cloud, like Salesforce, for instance. It could be an on-premise ERP system like SAP. Of course, it could be just a person in your team who does the license creation manually. Your software could be a software as a service application, could be a mobile application running on mobile devices. Your software could be an on-premise application, which your customer installs in virtual machine in the cloud without asking you. At least the only question which comes to you is, oh, how do I connect my CodeMeter dongle to the cloud? And of course, it could be an on-premise software, and on-premise software in all colors, like an embedded device software, software for desktop machine, software for IoT devices. So on-premise software, nearly every type of on-premise software. For license creation and license management, we offer two tools, License Central and License Portal. And typically I explain License Central as the backend and License Portal as the front end. So in License Central, you can define your license models. And you define your license models by just combining the different product item options. So for instance, if you want to create a subscription license, then you use expiration time or maintenance period, or both in combination, depending on license subscription or maintenance subscription. If you want to create trial licenses, then of course you're using expiration time. If you want to use floated network licenses, then you're using license quantity. If you're using modular licenses, then you're using different product codes. If you want to create pay-per-use licenses, you're using unit counter. And so this is what you do in License Central. You define your license models using our product item options. And of course, it's also the backend where the license creation is calculated, or the cryptographic stuff is done, or the management, like, oh, in this container, we already have a license, we need to change the license, add the license, and something like this. License Portal is the customizable front end for your user. Here we have something like reseller integration, partner integration, something like university, so that a teacher can distribute licenses to students and so on. And so here, this is a customizable interface where it could have your corporate design, your look and feel, and you can also customize your workflows here. As Wolfgang mentioned, we have the container types. We have the cloud container, dongle, and the CMX license. And we already mentioned the CodeMeter Cloud Lite, which is a lightweight version of CodeMeter, which supports a subset of the product item options and has a REST API, especially made for mobile applications. So, and how is the workflow? Or let's say additionally, there could be a software activation wizard browser inside your software, or the user uses a browser on his local system. And that, of course, could be the user itself. And an update trigger which pushes licenses automatically. We will see what it does in a couple of seconds. So when a license is created, usually your user, your ERP system, your CRM system, your e-commerce system creates a trigger and says, please create a license. Could be done in License Central, or if it is a person, could be done in License Portal. And now the activation code, the ticket, is delivered to your customer. Your customer takes his browser or takes your software activation wizard, enters the ticket, and says, please show me the available licenses. He sees, oh, one license is available, and then you define in which container he can store the license, and then you can choose between your definitions. So maybe you can choose between a CMX license and a cloud container, or between a dongle and a cloud container. So it depends, as mentioned, on your decision, and then he activates the license. And after this, we no longer need a License Central, License Portal. And now your protected application can access the license in the container, and typically SaaS and mobile applications using Cloud Lite, on-premise applications in the cloud using the cloud container, and for all the other on-premise applications, they can use, of course, all the three container types. If we speak of an update, then of course an update is created in License Central. And now your software, typically if it is an on-premise software, your software starts the software activation wizard in the background. The software activation wizard checks if there is an update, and then he distributes the software to the different container types. Or for the two cloud options, of course, we can also update the software or the license automatically from License Central to the CodeMeter Cloud or CodeMeter Cloud Lite container, which has the benefit that the user doesn't need to start the software. The license gets changed immediately. And so there are already a lot of questions in the chat. Wolfgang already answered a few questions already typing it. Which questions are still left and interesting for all?
Yeah, thank you for your question at all. One of the questions here is, I have seen you have CM dongles with USB interface and also with SD card, SSD card. What should I purchase?
One size fits all. So every dongle has the same feature. So if it is an SD card, if it is an ASIC, if it is an USB-C, USB-A interface, every dongle has the same functionality, the same space, the same product item options, your firm code, your product code. So there's no difference from the CodeMeter features between the different dongles.
Well, that's quite an easy answer. And due to the time, maybe one last question. Where is the cloud hosted, the private Wibu cloud? Well, this is something I might answer. So the cloud is hosted currently in Germany. We will enable also other instances in near future in 2024 based on AWS, and then we will also provide CM Cloud directly on other continents like the US or in Asia. Of course, currently you can also use CM Cloud containers from there, but due to the delay of the calls, it's more convenient, especially if you do an intensive use of cryptographic operations, to use a container that is without this large delay. Well, additionally, the CodeMeter license where we have just talked about, they are also hosted in Germany in a data center near Frankfurt, and so your data is stored safe there under German law. Well, due to the time, I think we are finished for now. Thank you for listening to us. We hopefully brought you some news or gave you some insight in how CodeMeter works. Thank you from my side.
And also thank you from my side. Have a nice day, evening, morning, and hope to see you again in the next webinar. Bye-bye.